And we're now joined with Mark Pavlik, the head coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions, and we're talking a little bit about the EIVA and the growth of it. And Pav, you've been in this conference since the 80s when you were a player. What is it like right now for the EIVA? It seems like an exciting time.
It is. I think we've got a great group of coaches that are doing the right things for their programs on their campuses. I think the collective efforts to professionalize the EIVA and to get us stronger, not only in league organization, but stronger as a league competitively is paying off. I can't say enough about the coaches that we have. They have all worked really hard at trying to get better and better talent, to get better and better coaching, and they're trying to maximize what they can do within the constraints of their individual institutions and programs. But I'm heartened to you take a look at one weekend we had number 6 and 7 in the conference knock off number 2 and 3. In my career, that has never happened, ever. So all of a sudden, we're getting more and more competitive from top to bottom. And I think that's you're just going to see it get better and better. And now we're going to go through the typical cycles that I think every conference goes through and every team goes through. But I really like where we're positioned. And a lot of the growth of the EIVA can be pointed at one guy, and that's Yvonne Marquez, our commissioner, executive director, whatever you want to call him. When the decision was made to bring Yvonne on as the commissioner, I think he really professionalized the league. He developed a league pride that said we're going to do things the right way. Everything that we can control as a league office, from what we do, how we pay our officials, what we demand of our officials, of our lines people, what we demand of our coaching staff, what we demand of the Sloan Ketterling EIVA rallies. All leads back to a pride of the league, and I think that has really, really helped us grow.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about Yvonne, because I actually saw a feature on him. I didn't even know this, just some of the personal struggles that he's going on with his life right now. Just what does that say about him that he's able to do all this while just battling cancer? He's
one very special human being, and I love him dearly. He's a good friend. We have had our disagreements over the years, but I can't imagine EIVA volleyball without Yvonne Marquez and where we would be right now. There's as far as his personal challenges and his battles, his monthly battles, and you see him and it's nothing but positive. What you saw in that YouTube video, that is Yvonne. You look at him and you say, where do you get all this energy and the sparkle in his eye? He is the main reason why the league has developed the way it has over the last 10, 12 years.
Now, you look at the league right now, and I want to get your sense on this because I hear every single time, Penn State, they have an easy ride to the NCAA tournament. They're playing no one, our sisters of the poor. It drives me nuts as a media member when I hear that. For you as a coach in the EIVA, does that bug you when you hear that?
Yes, and I realize a lot of that was brought on by ourselves with that as a league when we tried to be all things to all people back in the 90s, in the early 2000s. And, at one point we numbered, at least in my career, we numbered up in around 23 institutions in the league. And then you look at the types of institutions, we were all over the board. Throw Penn State out because there was no other institution like Penn State in the EIVA. But then you had little Juniata, about 1,600 students at one point, and then you had some of the D2 schools like New Haven and Concordia and East Stroudsburg, and you had differing athletic departments. You had the D3 members who went with a D3 philosophy where you were trying to win a national championship at a Division I level. So it was really difficult. And there were, at times it felt like the EIVA was just a place where athletic directors could dump a men's volleyball program and say, here's your playground, go play in it and don't bother us. And I think now we've raised the stakes, and the people that have stuck with us and have done the things that we needed to have done, we're starting to get better.
Yeah. And I know this is probably a little bit of a weird question to ask because you're going to do everything in your power to prevent this, but would in some ways it be a good thing for the EIVA if you guys didn't win the conference championship every single year? And you're going to do everything to make sure that that doesn't happen. But.
No, I understand the question, and I think I don't necessarily think it's the right question to ask. The question to ask is, will it be better to have an EIVA team come in and continue to compete at a level that you can win a national championship with? My biggest fear is exactly the question that you phrased, Vinny, that they worry about beating Penn State, and that's it. And then the next step, I think what we try to educate within the EIVA is, don't think of the current dominant team in the league. Think beyond that. What do you have to do to win a national championship? And that's one of the steps. But think beyond it. Don't think, we saw it in '98 with Princeton. They win the EIVA. They beat Rutgers in the EIVA finals that year after knocking us off in the semis. Then it's like, yes, we did it. They go to Hawaii, and what were the scores? 2, 3, and 4, maybe. That's the steps that we got to take. The next step is to do what the MIVA has done. Get 2 teams into this. Get our automatic berth and have somebody else that plays well enough to get an at-large.
Is that correct? Because you're on your 500th win, but does that
but my name was mispronounced last night, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But just out correct, does that '98 semifinal still bug you a little bit that you guys weren't able to get? Because that's the one blemish you have in your. You're 51-1 in conference.
We didn't deserve it. Princeton had a very good team that year, and they had a bunch of seniors that had played together for 4 years. Yeah. We had just come off of losing Ivan Contreras, Jason Kepner, and that group, and we had a bunch of young guys that were kind of trying to figure out the game, and I probably didn't do as good a job as I needed to do with that team. And now we were what our record says we were, and there's no sense in looking back at it and saying, "Gee, I wish." You just keep moving on.
Looking at the conference next year, you have a new member in Charleston. I know that we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about this, but it seems like that this is a school that they've bought into volleyball. They are excited to be playing the IVA.
They certainly are, and I'm really excited to see what they do in the next 4 to 5 years, and as they grow that program. And Coach Crane, and when he gets the opportunity to see what it takes to be successful within the EIVA level, to be successful within the EIVA MIVA level, and hopefully at some point they're competitive with with MPSF and Conference Carolinas. The plans that we hear from their president and their AD Bren Stevens, just new facility down there to play in. I think in their position, they're going to be able to get the Pennsylvania kids, the New York kids, the Ohio kids. All of a sudden, the Chicagoland area is certainly in their footprint. And then you start talking about Virginia and the kids that are playing in Virginia. So early on, I think they're going to be, and they're coming in with 4.5 scholarships. So they're doing it the right way. And I'm really excited about getting a member in there that is saying, hey, we believe in the EIVA and the direction you've sent. This doesn't sound like what I referred to earlier as somebody dumping we'll just dump this program in there. they want to make the EIVA better, and hopefully we can help make them better too.
Right. And just to ask you about kind of the recruiting, West Virginia, I think the average volleyball fan probably doesn't think, man, there's boys volleyball players in West Virginia, but is that kind of becoming a little bit of a hotbed, West Virginia, the Pennsylvania area for talent? And,
well, not West Virginia, but Pennsylvania is the longest running state-sanctioned boys high school championship in the country. So we have plenty of guys there. Virginia is, with why am I drawing a blank on the name? But you got Coastal Carolina clubs down there, and Richmond, RVC, NVVA. You got all those clubs, and they're growing. So, and then you got New Jersey with their high school program and with their club teams. You got Florida. We're starting to reach further and further into the South. And anytime there's more opportunities for these guys to play, that's better for them. And Charleston's going to give them those opportunities.
Well, looking at the conference next year, it's now going to be back to 8 teams.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have always, it just seems like you guys are one of the leading conferences when it comes to innovation of, hey, let's tinker with this maybe a little bit, maybe the postseason structure a little bit. Would you be for maybe expanding your guys' conference tournament from 4 teams to 6 teams or something along those lines, or do you like it the way it is right now at the 4?
I think an argument would have to be made to show me how adding more teams to a tournament would benefit the league. Right now, you look at this year's teams with Mason getting in with Princeton getting in at number 4, and Princeton was 6-6. Mason and Harvard were 7-5 this year.
Yeah, it was something
along those lines. But everybody below them was 4-8, 3-9. I think that when you start to say we want to expand the playoffs, you start to render your season less important. And I think that if we get to 10 teams, then I think we start to look at it. We get to 4, we stay at 8, then you're taking half the league, which I think is fine. If you're not good enough to be in the upper half of the league, but you're still asking to get into the playoffs, get into the upper half of the league. And if we get 10 teams, then you can say, all right, is team 5 and 6, can you make an argument to include those and go to a 6-team championship?
Now, only a couple more questions before I let you go as we kind of talk about the EIVA. For some reason this year there seems to be a movement, or people are bringing it up, that, hey, college volleyball should move to an international point system where you get 3 points if you beat a team in 3 or 4 games, and then you only get 2 points if you win in 5, and then you get 1 point if you lose in 5. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's something that we could ever see in college volleyball, or something that the EIVA may ever implement?
I would like to see it even go further.
Really?
I would like to see a system brought in where, and I will gladly give Tim Embaugh all the credit for this one at Ohio State, because Tim and I 10, 12 years ago sat in a hotel room during JOs and kind of threw this out. Why don't we, at the end of the year, you see how everybody finishes. So you have everybody's winning percentage. You take teams that have finished with a winning percentage of maybe 70% and higher, Group A, 50% to 70%, Group B, and people with winning percentages below 500, Group C. And now you start saying that if you play a Group A team at their place and you lose to them in 5, that's worth more than playing a Group C team at your place and winning in 3. And the math is easy to do. And I think what that does is that rewards teams who schedule tough teams to play. It rewards teams who play those tough teams on the road. And you could probably even factor in a few more multipliers in there that take time zones into account. So if Irvine flies over to play Pfeiffer and Pfeiffer finishes above 700, it's a bigger 5-game loss for them than playing whoever would finish last in the MPSF at their place and winning in 3.
Well, I do want to ask you about scheduling, because it's one of the interesting things that I've seen for maybe the last 10 years is that you guys always go out to the West Coast. West Coast, sometimes they'll come on out to the MIVA, but there hasn't been a West Coast team that's coming out to the East Coast to play an EIVA team since 2011. What is it just about the West Coast where they don't seem to want to go on out to the East Coast? Is it just simply the finances of it, or is it something more than that?
I'm sure we're all strapped with finances, and you've got to make good decisions. But I think there's a couple of things. Number one, you're allowed 28 dates. Their league has 24 already filled, so that makes it tough. And the other thing is, as we're now finding out with the EIVA becoming more and more competitive, 10 years ago, we could come back from Hawaii and play an EIVA team and give our second team guys and rest our first team guys. It's not happening anymore. So the travel backlog starts to come into play. And how do you recover from that? Well, the MPSF, when they travel back from, it's not like they have teams that they can say, well, we can play them and it's easy match. It doesn't happen anymore. So they've got to make good decisions based on positioning themselves to get into the MPSF tournament. So I think the big key is, can we find a way to loosen up the MPSF schedule to where instead of playing 24 dates, they're playing 18, 19 dates. And they're still maintaining the integrity of their league, the regular season of their league, so that they can have a representative tournament for all of their teams. But now they're opening dates so we can get interregional play.
And final question, as we've kind of broken down the EIVA, maybe let's look 5-10 years from now. Where would you love to see the EIVA be at?
I think I would love to see us be where the MIVA is right now, where top to bottom, you're having great matches night in and night out, where it's not the old EIVA where we could leave Penn State at noon, drive to a school 4 or 5 hours away, play at 7, win in 3, and turn around and come home. I want to see that now. I'm saying, okay, here's a crucial weekend. We got to go there Thursday night, make sure we get a pass and serve in. Let's make sure we treat them the same way that we treat the matches that everybody else had said, well, that's a tough match for them. And in 10 years, given the coaching that we have, and I think given the leadership of the EIVA, I think that's a very, very doable goal.